we're talking about companies that have survived centuries. And this is very fascinating based on the fact that most companies die out in the first year or first 5 years. The Bank of Korea in 2008 released a report stating that over 4,000 and almost 5,000 companies were over 200 years old. Most of them, of course, being situated in Japan. Something to look into if that's your type of information to find. But today we're going to dive into the United Kingdom and look into Lloyds Bank Group. Now, Lloyds Bank Group, of course, they're in the financial services industry and they've been around since 1975. So they have some days and run under their belt. This company was founded by two owners, Lloyds and Taylor. And at this time, they were just iron makers and bottle makers. But the business has evolved over the years through mergers, through acquisitions, through the global depression, to the financial crisis, and they've emerged strong through many things. So currently the bank has a board of 10 members, and of course the United Kingdom is big on independent directors. So this board is mostly independent directors. They have a current market capitalization of £51 billion. They've had to merge. So Lloyds has had to merge with a few companies over the years. Like I said, they've had to acquire a few banks over the years. They even got into insurance at some point. Now, the current chairman of the board is composed mostly of financial industry gurus, which is a trend in the banking sector. If we don't have a bunch of MBAs, we have a lot of 20 years, a decade-long experience in financial services. I think worthy of note is their chairman, who is Sir Robin Button-Hertzberg. He's had over 25 years experience, and he's somewhat of a name in the industry, having, even been in public sector in the UK. We have Charlie Nunn, who is their CEO. We have William Chalmers as their chief financial officers. These are people who have served many companies and, the names we know, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and they have brought all this experience to Lloyds. Now, Lloyds has a unique stance in terms of how they've operated. First is leveraging on acquisition. Of course, they acquired the Bank of Scotland. They tried to merge with Halifax at some point. And just to ensure that as things were going, they were trying to diversify. At some point, they also tried to get into the insurance space. How is their governance? The board has about 4 committees to be expected, of course. And this has been very positive for the bank. When they struggled, they did have the government intervene, but this was very normal in 2008. But again, just to ensure that they were steady, the bank had to sell off the percentage that the government acquired to keep it afloat in 2008 and try to get that back privatized. So you would see that the current Lloyds as it's set up is a combination of like the Bank of Scotland, Halifax, and a few other banks to ensure that it's well consolidated. I'm curious to see, being that the board has just one member who is basically in the tech space, but at least it's something to, consider. They also have one person who is basically in brands, that's Amanda Mackenzie. And so that tells us that although it's a core financial service in bank, or rather business, they're looking to the future and ensuring that there's some diversity on their board. So having survived through 1975, through the financial crisis, and standing strong with a really strong board, I'm curious to see how the bank moves on going forward. It's listed on the London Stock Exchange. It also has a listing in New York Stock Exchange. And like I said, they're like the 15th largest stock exchange. So this is a big company with a long history. We see adaptability at the core of most of the businesses we've looked at. And I think in building and in reviewing some of the factors and variables that come into play, I see that we talk about a lot: fairness, transparency, accountability. Sometimes this shifts. Of course, we've had situations with the bank where they've been crisis. So they've had fraud claims, they've had issues with whistleblowers not being handled properly. But in all of this, they've navigated their crisis quite expertly, or to some extent, to ensure that they stay afloat. Anyway, that's all for today in terms of talking about Lloyds in the UK in the financial services sector. I'm going to be looking at other companies and other countries just to see how these companies have sailed through and managed to survive multiple political environments and multiple business plans. Till next time, my name is Ibukun Oshoba, and I will see you.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.